She is half Brazilian, she's beautiful, and she's bringing a much needed flair to the presenting team. Please welcome Layla and Ali.
I know what you're thinking. You thought I was above this. Well, I'm not. I never really paid much attention to this whole story. I just don't care about the subject. But then last week, a clip came across my feed that was so sick and twisted and utterly deranged that I had to dig in. Now, honestly, I always felt that there was far more egregious things to criticize Ian Garry for than his wife's age, their relationship. The big one was the Magny fight, in which he really tried to frame Neil as an abusive parent. This is where Ian took a major turn into unlikable territory.
There's almost like different levels to the assholes that come out. There's the whooping that you give somebody in high school, like, or in grade school. So when he tough on my mom and you put the beat him on there. There's the whooping that you give your son now, like to kind of teach him life a little bit. And being a father, I've become quite accustomed to that kind of whooping now, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to giving on Saturday. I mean,
that comment, taken out of context, might look bad, but this fight was billed as a young, streaking phenom in Ian Garry about to run through an aging veteran. Neil was just putting a humorous spin on things. He was saying, no, it's not that at all. This is not going to be the big breakout of a young lion. This is going to be like a father disciplining his son. The guy was joking about the dynamic.
Nobody, there is no right to ever put your hand on a kid, ever discipline anything.
Ian would not let it go. He was like a very annoying dog with a very silly bone. In the pre-fight press conference, Ian kind of tried to enforce the punishment of silent reflection on Neil. He was to sit there like a naughty little boy and reflect on his sins.
We are tackling a very, very big fucking issue here, mate. And he should sit there and fucking sit down, shut up, and just reflect on what he said.
I will have to go to Neil. Neil, I'm curious what you think when you hear this.
No. Neil's not answering the question. He's going to sit there and he's going to be quiet.
And Ian Garry was going to enforce this by essentially screaming over Magny when he tried to talk.
You can play victim all you want. We know what's going to happen Saturday night.
Let's go, drown him out. I want to hear you scream when he speaks, yeah?
Now, I hate to mock anybody for immutable characteristics. I don't in general have a problem with Ian's voice, but when he starts screaming, he has the strained, screechy, high-pitched quality of a rooster in distress. And when you combine that with the authoritative tone of a parent chastising a child, well, that creates an unlikable combo.
Let's go, drown him out. I want to hear you scream when he speaks, yeah?
People felt this was unfair and dishonest of Ian to frame Magny in this light. Neil tried to clarify in the presser, but the rooster just kind of screeched him down. And you just have to sympathize with Neil here.
Yesterday you said I'm a father. I've been accustomed to that type of beating.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm going to whoop that ass on Saturday.
You can play
you'll do
all
fucking
you want.
nothing. You'll sit there, you'll shut up, and you'll do what you're told.
But while I think everyone agrees this was kind of unfair, all is fair in love and war. Like there is a psychological aspect to fighting. But he doubled down in the post-fight press conference and kind of framed himself as having the moral high ground on the issue. So he didn't frame it as psychological warfare or trying to get under Neil's skin. You know, it's part of the promotion. He was happy to maintain that Neil is, to quote Garry, a complete scumbag.
And was beating Magny, did you feel sort of
Magny's a scumbag, and I'm glad I fucking went down and gave him a hiding. I was a pest as a kid. Look at me, I'm the exact type of person that's gonna cause trouble. Do you know what I mean? I got a fucking whack at a wooden spoon. That doesn't mean I go and fucking do it to him. No, you break the cycle. And I see a lot of these comments being like, oh, this.
This. That has to be one of the laziest dismissals of other people's points I've ever heard. I see these comments being like, this. What specifically are they saying? This. Words and shit.
And I see a lot of these comments being like, oh, this.
I'm going to have to remember that one the next time I'm in an argument. Somebody makes a bunch of great points. I'm going to say, listen, I hear what you're saying. You're saying, this and that. Just dismiss everything they say.
If you want to be better and you want to change the world, don't do what you don't want to do to yourself. Break the fucking cycle, be a better human, be a better man, and let's change the fucking world.
The cherry on top of the whole thing was that in the aftermath, it emerged that Neil was embroiled in a custody battle. And so the headlines and social media storm whipped up by Ian almost had very real-world consequences. in a process that can be very difficult for men to begin with.
I should know, like, my ability to actually be the father I want to be the parent I want to be, is actually at stake now based off of what someone perceived I was saying or whatever, and how they chose to spin it in the media. I mean, it was just a very difficult place that I found myself, and that was definitely one of the lowest things I've ever seen an opponent do ever.
So, that's not Ian's fault. Maybe Neil should have chosen his words a little more carefully, but it reframed Ian's idiotic crusade as something a little more consequential and potentially destructive. Honestly, it was a bad break for Ian, because this is where a lot of people were thinking, I'd like to see somebody forcibly close this kid's mouth. It's really funny. In the post-fight press conference to that one, Garry was talking like an expert on trash talk about how Neil just gave him gold and he had to destroy him with it.
Magny gave me gold. It's like someone handing you a gold bar and going, here, yeah, don't drop it. It's like, obviously not, I'm going to use this.
Just the sheer lack of self-awareness. It wasn't Magny who had been destroyed by that comment. Ian had used it to destroy himself in the eyes of many. This was for many the beginning or a major escalation of Garry's likability issues. Now, you're also hearing the stories of him getting kicked out of gyms, so he appears to have recurrent issues in his personal life too. And some people were already against him for selling t-shirts of Jeff Neal's mugshot in the promotion for their fight.
People thought it was funny. I'm like, you think that's funny? Like, there's nothing funny about it. Like, you put somebody's mugshot on a shirt and like, that's funny, that's tasteless,
Ian had kind of established himself as a personality and a trash talker, and he kind of set the rules of engagement that would ultimately be the undoing of his public image. In the Jeff Neal fight, he indicated that it was perfectly fair to go rifling through people's personal lives looking for embarrassing shit to use against them. And in the Magny fight, he showed he felt it was fair to distort reality in a way that would potentially have real-world consequences in his opponent's personal life. And that rule of engagement certainly came back to bite him in the fucking ass. Because while Magny and Neal weren't able to defend themselves on the mic, the cavalry were coming. The two horsemen of the apocalypse, Strickland and Colby, guys who bathe in this type of salacious shit, ready and willing to feast on the details of Ian Garry's personal life.
Yes, I never talk about anybody's spouses, but this shit ain't right. It ain't fucking right. I gotta talk about it.
So I'm just going to use Strickland and Colby to outline the chief rumors associated with the Garry household, with the Machados.
Ian Garry, I remember when I met you, dude. It was in New York. But I remember thinking to myself, there ain't something right about that girl. There's something about that woman that ain't fucking right. The way she walked, the way she looked, the way she talked, I knew it.
The way she walked, the way she talked. Oh, Strickland can spot him. She had the labored gait of an entity that sleeps in a cramped coffin. Strickland is so fucking dramatic sometimes. Dude, she's a fucking virus, dude.
Now I'm finding out you're 26, she's fucking 40.
So this is the first major thing. Ian Garry is 26 and she is 41.
The ex-fucking husband lives with you?
The ex-husband lives with them. Now this is one of the details that most supports the ultimate conclusion and meme that was reached on Ian. He is in fact a cuck.
You took the last name?
Ian took the last name of the ex-husband. Disgusting. Awful. It's all kinds of fucked up and twisted. It's a depraved mind control cult they've got over there.
Motherfucker, she wrote a book on how to be a wag. I didn't know what a wag was until now, dude.
She wrote a book called How to Be a Wag. A wag is a wife or girlfriend of a famous athlete, and the book is framed in its own description as a how-to manual on how to bag the next David Beckham. And it describes being a wag as a hot new career choice. So, if you take this at face value, being a wife or a girlfriend is a vocation and more a function of ambition than romance. Now that book would be used very obviously to imply that her relationship with Ian was more about a savvy, opportunistic, manipulative older woman latching on to a younger man before his star explodes so that she can share in or plunder the spoils of his career.
This shit ain't right, dude. She's a succubus.
So a typically vicious Sean Strickland ran. And of course, Colby got in on the action. I feel like both of these guys were especially vicious in their attacks on Garry. So he conducts an impromptu survey on a subject.
I got one more survey for you all. For all the people out there, how many of you guys have Ian Garry's wife? Oh, man. Wow.
The whole crowd went crazy. I don't want to call anyone a liar, but I would question the results of that survey. Then there's a series of back and forths between the two, where Ian is trying to get Colby to fight, but Colby really only wants to take vicious shots at his wife.
Ian Garry, you translucid cunt. Tell me, why do I gotta go down in the rankings to fight some Casper the Ghost looking Irish kid who has a gold digging wife?
Layla is a gold digger. So again, the whole thing is an opportunistic endeavor on her behalf. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail with respect to how these rivalries ended. It seems he did threaten Strickland with a lawsuit, which, in light of Ian's own trash-talking of prior opponents, was always going to go down like a lead balloon.
He says, I'm going to sue you if you don't fucking delete that. You're going to sue me, motherfucker. He said that I was lying. Motherfucker, I ain't lying. You are 26. She is 40. She wrote a fucking book on how to be old and be with a young athlete. I ain't fucking lying, bro. This is factual. And Ian Garry, I don't give a fuck about being sued. You think I give a fuck about that? You want me to respect you. You say that I'm going to go fucking to Bass Pro Shop, wherever the fuck you go. I'm going to go buy a 9. I'm going to handle this like a man. I would have respected that. I don't fucking respect that. But hey, I fucking expect nothing else from a man like you.
On the Colby front, Colby made a list of absurd and unrealistic demands in order to agree to a fight, while Ian was desperate to fight Colby. So it did look like Colby was ducking, and Ian kind of won that one. But those are the chief accusations against Ian and his wife. I don't think people want to hear it, but there's a couple of these that I don't think hold up to scrutiny. The first one is that she's a gold digger. Like, they got together, I believe, before he was in the UFC, so I think it was in 2021. He was either a contender or he was a Cage Warriors champion. So I don't think he was making big money. She was working for the organization. So the implication has to be that she had McGregor-type stars in her eyes. Like, we just saw the crazy rise of Conor, and now we've got the next blonde, Irish, brash, trash-talking kid who fits the mold. And she's like, I gots to have him. He's like a winning lottery ticket. And what we're watching is a woman going out of her way to cash that lottery ticket. But the thing is, it's not like Leila was a typical penniless wannabe Instagram model. It seems she had a successful career in media. I mean, she worked for everyone. Now, she's worked for ESPN, BT Sports, Sky Sports, Nickelodeon, Red Bull TV, Kick TV. She's worked with the MLS, Goal.com. She has a very extensive resume. There's huge money in soccer. In the 2012 Summer Olympics in London, she was selected as the female voice for the opening ceremony, and she did commentary on a number of the events. You know, that is an enormous global spectacle. People might not remember this, but before Paris, the Olympics had a certain prestige. So she is very successful in her own right. So people can say she was kind of latching on to Ian, but it's not like she was bringing nothing to the table. Chances are she had considerably more money than Ian when they got together. And MMA is an incredibly risky career. 1 or 2 losses, a bad injury, and he could be on the scrap heap. Financially, Ian Garry has more potential upside, but she was much more of a sure thing. Like, if Ian didn't make it, it's very likely she was going to bear the bulk of the financial weight of raising their child, because I don't see any way outside MMA that Ian was going to make the type of money she could make and likely has made in media. So, like, is she a gold digger? Well, I'm sure projections about Ian's future were part of the equation, but she was bringing a lot to the table herself. And it's worth noting that in 2014, when she was working with celebrities and interviewing soccer players and attending star-studded events, and at the peak of her powers, she married a nutritionist. I think it's very likely she could have wooed a soccer player in this time period, if that's what she was after. People are also kind of critical of the age difference. I just don't care about this. You know, the idea here is that she's an older woman manipulating Ian in some way, but he's an adult. They're both adults. I don't give a fuck about the age difference. But even if we kind of dismiss those things, there's still a number of very bizarre rumors that were circulating. So, Layla decided to clap back in a series of 2 videos. I think these videos were drastically different. The first one, she's kind of angry and she's clapping back. She seems a little bit bitter, but she's clearly upset by things. Anyone doing exercises on a street corner deserves a boot in the fucking ass.
Good morning. Right, there's been a lot of shit being said online about me, my family, my personal life. All of it's fucking nuts. So my wife decided to clap back a little bit, give some truth to the story, and yeah, so look, my wife is the most intelligent person I've ever met.
Oh, for fuck's sake, dude. Like, I think it's great when a couple speak very positively about each other. I just think it's a great sign, but there's no need for this type of hyperbole. Could people stop saying, my wife is the smartest person I've ever met? Like, maybe that's true for some men, but I feel it's part of a modern epidemic. Everybody's wife is the smartest person they've ever met these days. So even if it is true, when you say it, people are going to think you're exaggerating. You're seeing her through rose-tinted glasses and idealizing her. It's like you're asking people to humor you and share in your delusion. Oh, really? She sounds amazing, dude. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe Layla is on the brink of some groundbreaking shit. Maybe she's a whisker away from that ever-elusive nuclear fusion, and she spends her spare time composing symphonies to rival Mozart, but I doubt it.
That's why I married her. That's why I fell in love with her. She's fucking awesome. Now, if you think you're gonna talk about me, or my kids, or my team, or my family, and me and her not clap back, then you're fucking nuts. Listen to what she has to say.
So, some content creators and MMA media are having a fucking field day on my private life, and seeming as content creation is, you're not the only ones that make content, I thought we'll have a little chat about this.
You can tell she's super confident here, like she thinks she's just about to dazzle with her media brilliance. You guys are out there making your content? Well, hold my glass of Chateau Margaux. I'm going in. I'm the content boss around here. This better be good.
Let's have a little talk about it, because this ain't my first rodeo.
This ain't her first rodeo. She's tough. She's made Instagram videos. She's unloaded entire clips of TikToks. She's a tough, gritty John Wayne type character of content creation. This ain't my first rodeo, you motherless fucks.
Looking at the hate, the majority of the clips and the comments that I'm getting, without a doubt, the biggest thing that I've done wrong is age.
Despicable. How any woman can have the audacity to age. I think any woman over the age of around 27 should have the decency to at least sleep in a cryogenic chamber. Why does she not do that? Because she doesn't respect men. That's why. Now, obviously, it's not that she's aging. It's the age difference. But as I said, I don't care about this. They're both adults, so let's skip over this part.
On to truth number 2, and this one's the big reveal. I wrote a book called How to Be a Wag.
Now, this book is the big smoking gun that ties the whole predatory, opportunistic angle together. She literally wrote the book, the how-to manual on how to bag an athlete as a career choice. So let's hear what she has to say about that. How do you explain that, Leila?
Now, that statement itself is a little bit of a stretch. I can hardly call myself an author of an 11-page Audible-only satire story that was written in 2010. Now, 2010, that context is key because that was during the FIFA World Cup, where I was working at OK Magazine, working with various different gossip mags, and we were creating this hilarious satire look at wives and girlfriends in football.
Ah, okay. So it was a lighthearted, satirical book on the subject.
Lo and behold, I'll hold my hands up, sarcasm isn't well taken, especially with American audiences. British humour and British sarcasm is often lost.
Only the native-born Brits could possibly untangle the hilarious nuances of sarcasm. It's all far too subtle and understated for the common American mind to grapple with. When Bisping inevitably gets caught sticking pins in an Ariel Helwani-shaped voodoo doll, you know that will be the excuse. It's just banter, dudes. It's sarcasm. You wouldn't get it.
Some bullshit things that people have been saying, that my ex-husband lives with us. No, he doesn't. And no, he never has.
But to be fair here, all she's doing is straightening out a number of persistent rumors that were flying around. The ex-husband doesn't live with them. Ian didn't take his name. The book was satire. I think it's fair enough she comes out and addresses these things. In that clip, she seems sincere and understandably frustrated. So you could sympathize with her and understand her wanting to straighten things out.
So that's what happens when true things are taken completely out of context and used in a hateful way.
This second clip is totally different. I think it's very self-indulgent and very condescending, and she's trying so hard to show off the extent of her robust intellect that it's quite unlikable. I just want to issue a warning here. Watching the following clip actually turned me into a misogynist. Just for about 4 or 5 hours, I did eventually snap out of it, but those were 4 or 5 furious, hate-filled hours. That's sarcasm, by the way, for anyone who's completely lost right now. What's he talking about? He's crazy.
Shall we do this? The top 3 lies you believed about Ian Machado Garry. There are obviously many, many more. I'd argue over 99% of what you read is a lie, but we're going to stick with 3 today, and these are important. The crowd at UFC 298 press conference were loud. The boos were undeniable.
Oh, God, this is hard to watch. This is honestly hard to watch. The fucking theatrics, the whole thing. Like, she didn't go to the London School of Theatre for nothing. The enunciation, the eye roll, the expression, the drama. Fuck me. This clip is hard to watch.
As Ian took to the stage, and a bloke behind me shouted, "Can I f*** your wife?" He had no idea I was there until I turned around and glared at him, to which he just disintegrated into a wet puddle of apologies. This tsunami of aggression towards the undefeated welterweight all exploded when former middleweight title holder and current multiple world bullshit title holder Sean Strickland read a clickbait headline but didn't bother to fact check or read the whole article.
I'm sure her old drama professor would have a lot to say about this performance. I think he'd give it a C-.
Unsurprising, gullible behavior, but why would we expect anything else? Why would we expect anyone to fact check? We're in an age of headline-only, attention-deficit consumers looking really to validate only preconceived ideas online.
Yeah, I totally agree with her on this point, and I think it's a major issue. For my own mental health, I honestly try to stay away from political media as much as I can for this reason, but it's very difficult to do. But let's get on to the 3 lies.
So let's begin with lie number 1. Ian took his wife's ex-husband's surname.
Yeah, awful. This is the one that really made me hate them. Repulsive. What's she gonna do, deny it?
Machado is my maiden name. We added our names together when we got married. It's not that big a deal.
Okay, well that might not be true, but there's plenty other things.
Lie number 2. His wife's ex lives with them.
Awful. The ex lives with them. Who knows what goes on in that depraved household? Awful. And there's just no recovering from this one. What, is she gonna deny this too?
No, he doesn't. He never has done.
Well, can you at least tell us he lives in a tent in your front yard? I mean, give us something to work with here, Leila. Now, so it appears most of the accusations are bullshit.
This lie was born out of the mouth of an MMA YouTuber desperate for clicks.
Okay, so now she's kind of going after specific people. I presume this is either Guru, Jesse, Lucas, Red Pill.
When you make a channel entirely dedicated to your opinion on others, you have to somewhat admit that your own talent isn't enough. You haven't got enough to entertain. You have to talk about other people in order to stay relevant.
When you make a channel entirely dedicated to your opinion on others, you have to somewhat admit that your talent isn't enough. Well, actually, you don't have to admit that, because there's no barriers to entry to competing in the marketplace of content creation. So in order to rise up and gain an audience, you do have to have some discernible talent or to provide some entertainment value. But even if we did accept her premise here, that commenting on other people denotes a lack of talent, you know, she is a woman who made her career working for multiple gossip rags that peddle salacious celebrity stories. And she was running around interviewing soccer players. That's what she's most known for. So, you know, if her premise is correct, it applies to nobody more than her. But as I said, I disagree with her premise on the grounds of how competitive content creation is.
You're riding off the coattails of other people's hard work. This isn't fighting commentary. This is just self-indulgent numerical masturbation.
Now, I can't believe she uttered these words, self-indulgent masturbation, in this video. This is one of the most self-indulgent examples of verbal masturbation you'll ever see. Again, what she's doing in this video was fair. You know, she was just straightening out a number of lies that were circulating about her, but she's doing it in such an unlikable manner that this is actually a loss for her, while I think the first clip was a win.
Lie number 3. Ian is a cuck. Step back up, Sean Strickland, a man who's unlikely to be au fait with the Shakespearean English he unwittingly used when calling Ian a cuck.
Here she's dropping in the phrase au fait, just to add an air of sophistication. And then she goes into the etymology of the word cuckold. Now, she is just so proud of herself. But as we're about to see, she herself is not au fait with Shakespeare.
First penned in the story of Othello, the word cuckold refers to the fear of a man who's been betrayed by his wife. In the Shakespearean classic, Iago tells Othello about Desmonda's adultery and he blindly believes the rumors.
As it turns out, the character's name isn't Iago, it's Iago.
Iago talks about the fact that he's fought with Othello at Rhodes, at Cyprus.
There's nothing wrong with mispronouncing a name, but if you're smugly trying to educate the unwashed masses, Sean Strickland, and mock him for his ignorance, in that case, you kind of want to have the fucking details correct.
It's serendipity, and not merely coincidental, that Iago was lying. There was no truth to the story at all. Othello, like the crowd at UFC 298, was cruelly misled by Iago's jealousy and insecurities. Othello was never the cuckold he was called. His wife was never an adulteress, and notably, when the lies were exposed, Iago was taken away to be tortured and killed. Thank you, Shakespeare.
Thanks, Shakespeare, for straightening that whole thing out. Turns out Shakespeare didn't invent the word. I did a little Googling myself. It's a reference to the cuckoo bird, who are sometimes known to lay their eggs in other birds' nests. Sneaky little fucks. I'm just gonna offload this little egg right here. He's yours for the next 18 years. So, if your wife is unfaithful, you could end up unwittingly raising another man's kid. That observation is the origin of the word. So move over, Shakespeare. I think we can all thank Charles Darwin for straightening that one out. Anyway, that kind of brings us up to speed on the whole Machado-Garry situation and gives us the context into which Layla uploaded this clip. Like, on the surface, this clip looks totally innocent. It's embarrassing. Ian's out there like a puppet, but the captions are supposed to be kind of cutesy, and she can be heard laughing in the clip. So you think, okay, they've had a fight, Ian is bringing flowers, he's groveling, but the whole thing is lighthearted.
Oh, fuck you.
But Ian says she's the smartest person he knows, and she is intelligent. And in what domain does she have expertise? Media. So you have to wonder, would she have known this clip would have been used to demolish Ian online? I mean, look at all the shit they've gone through over things that weren't even true. I think she would have to know that anything that would cast Ian in a weak, or submissive, or groveling light and framed her as a puppet master in control would be used to decimate the guy on social media. So now when you look at it in the context of an argument, it becomes kind of passive-aggressive. Like, was she angry with Ian because of the argument and then uploaded this clip to kind of push the MMA community, guys like Guru and fighters like Strickland, to ridicule and mock the guy? She can add all the lighthearted and romantic, cutesy captions she wants. She had Ian out there dancing like a fucking monkey, and they have been through hell over the whole idea of Ian being framed in exactly the type of weak, submissive light that she's now placing him in. She knows that. So, it could be something innocent, but it could be something a little more passive-aggressive and nasty. Like, when you look at the backlash to this clip over the last week, you kind of think, oh my God, this is vicious. I bet she regrets putting that one up. Ian got fucking demolished. Well, maybe that was the whole point. But the reality is that clip is probably the worst thing for me. A lot of the other stuff was either not true or taken out of context, or it's shit that I don't really care about. And so you have to kind of wonder, what's going on here and what can they do about it? I think it's a simple matter of Layla and Ian losing the same war, the war for likability. I've mentioned this with respect to Jones, but I think when guys become heavily disliked, certain ideas are simply irresistible for their entertainment value, regardless of whether or not they're true. I saw a comment the other day. Someone said Ian Garry is the reason hotel rooms have chairs in the corner. Oh, God. People making jokes about his wife and the ex, they don't care about the facts of the matter. They're into it for the humor. The utility of the whole thing as a meme is simply worth more than the truth. What can they do about that? Well, they're not going to rehabilitate their image overnight, so I think they only have one option. I think they have to accept it in the medium term and try to actually look at it as a positive. Ian Garry moves the needle. Maybe not in exactly the way he'd like, but enough to be a star, to some degree, if he can keep winning. Now, I'd imagine it's very hard to do, but I think Ian just needs to take a leaf out of Colby's book and realize that positive attention and negative attention are both just attention at the end of the day. Attention that can be leveraged into opportunities and a lucrative career. Honestly, I don't think there's any other way for them to look at the whole situation. At least for now. I'm going to try to get my Patreon moving again. I'd really appreciate some help with the channel. What I used to do was give patrons early access to certain videos, and then I would include their comments when I uploaded it on YouTube. But I think I'm going to change it up moving forward. Instead, I'm going to give patrons a heads up on the video I'm working on so they can comment on the subject ahead of time. I'll then go through those comments on Patreon and include some of them on the video. I think that's likely to be more engaging than the way I used to do it. Anyway, if you're enjoying the content and would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it.